Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Okay, wait a minute. Now it's time to introduce our main speaker for the night, and that is Laurie.
Hi, I'm Laurie. I'm an alcoholic. Oh, I'm nervous. My heart's about to beat out of my chest. Sometimes I'm okay and sometimes I'm not, and today's one of those not, but hopefully that'll go away. By the grace of God, I've been clean and sober since January 6th of 1987, and for that I'm truly grateful. My sister's with me tonight, which I always appreciate. Not only did she have to live through my life, but she's probably heard it, and she just told me she could do my story, like I could pass away and she could show up as me, and you guys would never know it. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, and in that I hope to transmit God. I tend to cry when I talk, so if I make you cry, that's good. That means we transmitted. I especially like to make guys cry. Anyway, I grew up in New York, Long Island, New York. I grew up in an alcoholic family. My dad was a raging alcoholic, and I have two sisters, one older, one younger. When I talk about the bad sister, it's not the one that's here with me tonight. This is the good sister. So my dad was physically and sexually abusive. He was physically abusive on me and sexually abusive on my older sister. And from the time I can remember, I didn't want to live. And I didn't realize that till I got here. I was seeing a therapist, and she said, "At what age did you become suicidal?" And I was like, that's when I realized, I had never not been suicidal. I believed there was a God since I was really small, and I never questioned that because I truly believed that maybe I had been a witch or something in a past life, and the reason I was here was to serve time for God, to pay back what I had done in that life. So I knew that God was punishing me, and I was suicidal from the time I was really small. I would cut my wrist, take pills, bang my head on the walls, throw myself down flights of stairs. I just wanted to die. I never bonded to any humans. My family pretended like nothing was going on at home, and the more outward I acted, the more crazy they made me seem. They took me to psychiatrists and psychologists, and once a year they would take me to doctors where they would put clay on my head and put wires in it. I think it's called the EEG, to see what's the matter with my brain, because I was very violent because of my dad's violence on me. And the only thing I ever bonded to was my dog. I really loved my dog, and sometimes when I was feeling suicidal, it was like I'm not going to kill myself because I can't protect my dog. My dad was also mean to the dog at times. So and I was violent from a young age. I remember in nursery school was my first act of violence that I could clearly remember. There was this girl in my class that looked stupid, like I didn't like the way she looked. And I don't know why at 4 or 5 years old I'm thinking she looks so stupid she needs to be hurt. But I told her to lay down next to a flight of stairs, and we were going to play house, and it was time to go to sleep. And when she laid down, I kicked her down the flight of stairs. And I remember the teacher standing there with her while she was trying to find out where that kid was, and she was hyperventilating so bad she couldn't find me. And I was grateful. I didn't feel any guilt, And I think now, as you spend some time in sobriety, memories pop up in your mind. And one of the clear memories that I recently got that could have clued people into that something was desperately wrong with me was I had this Susie Homemaker Easy Bake Oven. It was like this oven with a light bulb, and you'd put a pie in there, and it'd sit in there for like 6 hours, and then it'd come out done. My Susie Homemaker Easy Bake Oven was a froggy concentration camp. The frogs would go in there and toast, and they say serial killers, start like that. I never killed anyone, but there was definitely something wrong. I grew up Jewish. So the whole froggy concentration camp didn't play well with them either, I grew up Jewish. We pretended everything was normal. We went to temple, we went to Hebrew school, and on the outside everything looked okay. My dad was an airline pilot for American Airlines, so that should make you feel safe, right? He's drinking all the time, but in those days they didn't test. I think they test now. My mom was a dental assistant when she worked, and my dad was kind of crazy. Like he was either really violent or kind of funny. He kind of reminded me of Jack Nicholson in The Shining. But the funny thing really didn't play well in our family with the violence mixed in, you know, so he never got the proper attention for that. So my mom at the age of, I guess I had just been bar mitzvahed, so my mom, when I was 13, decided she had had enough of my dad, and she left us kids with my dad, and she came out here to California. And when we were left alone with my dad, things started to escalate. He would go on trips, and sometimes he'd leave a lady with us, and sometimes he wouldn't, and we'd be alone. And this one night, he was gone on a trip. My dad had this walk-in closet where my mom and dad used to have their clothes, and my dad's closet was now filled with cases of alcohol. And we knew we were never allowed to go near the closet. It was clear, you know, it was like word in the house, you don't touch the closet or you'll die, you know. And I had a friend spend the night one night while he was gone, and he hid my blow dryer, and he would do stuff like that, crazy stuff just to trigger a fight. And he hid our blow dryers, and we started looking for him in the morning. And then I heard him come in, and I was really sensitive to when my dad would walk in the house. I knew when the garage door would open because I had to quickly figure out what kind of mood he was in so I knew whether to disappear or not. And he came in, I heard him go into his room, set his briefcase down, and then he found me in the bathroom, and he was beating me up I was shoved between the toilet and the wall, and my sister, who's with me today, remembers more of it than I do. She said there was a hole in the wall from my body being shoved into the wall when the girl walked into the bathroom that was there that night and saw my dad beating me, and he saw her, and it was kind of like a moment of shock. And she got scared and picked up the phone and called her mom, and he went back into his bedroom, and her mom said, "I'm coming over to get you girls, and you know, we're going to take care of this, and this isn't going to happen anymore." And she came, picked me up, brought me back to their house, and she was talking to me about, "We're going to take care of you," and blah, blah, blah. And then my dad called up over there, and he said, "You know, Laurie's been to see psychiatrists, psychologists. She's kind of crazy. She makes up lies." And you know, I did lie, I did steal, but on this particular day, this is what happened, you know. And so she believed, the parents kind of stuck together in the 70s. There wasn't so much about child abuse or anything, and she believed him, and he came over and picked me up and brought me back home. And when we got back home, he started chasing me like he was going to beat me up again. And I guess I got enough courage just from talking to that one mom, the only person I had ever talked to, that I just ran out of the house. And I called him from my friend Erin's house, and I said, "I'm at Erin's and I'm not coming home." And I hung up, and in the middle of the night that night, I got a call from my aunt and my dad, and my aunt said, we're coming over to get you. The police are here, and we know you got the gun. Now, I didn't have a gun. My dad slept with a gun under his pillow, like a handgun loaded, and it always used to scare me when my mom was sleeping next to him, but I didn't have the gun. But it didn't surprise me that they were calling me with this crazy story, because they did a lot of crazy stuff, but it did surprise me that they were calling at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So she came over and got me, and the police were asking me questions when I got home about the gun, and I didn't know anything about the gun, so they sent me to bed, and the police left. And after they left, my aunt came in the room and said, "Laurie, I just saw your dad and sister sneak the gun out of the oven, and I know they were trying to set you up, but if you tell on your dad, he's going to lose his job at American Airlines." Now, although I hated my dad, I mean, I really hated my dad. Like, if I knew a hitman at school or something that would charge $5 to off my dad, he would have been done, you know? But to tell you the truth, deep down in the core of me, I wanted my dad to love me so bad. Like, I just wanted to wake up one day and him to go, "You know what, you're a great kid. I don't know why I'm beating you up." You know, I just wanted that so bad that I knew if I told on him, I'd never have any chance of that. So I agreed, I'm not going to tell on him. And the next morning, I woke up to the police standing at my bedroom door, and they said, "Get your clothes on, we're going away." And I got my clothes on, and I got in the police car, and they took me to Centralized Mental Institution for the Criminally Insane for trying to kill my dad. And that was a really hard time for me, you know, and I'm getting more in touch with that lately because I'm trying to write a book, and it's just like, just the feelings of like being in that place. And I was so suicidal, and I was so, at this point I knew God hated me, because like, if God loved me, why would I, you know, I've been beaten all this time, and now I'm getting put away, and now my family doesn't want me, you know. And I was so suicidal that they tied me to a bed with a straitjacket, and they tied the straitjacket underneath the bed with a rope so that I couldn't move. And my mom used to call back to the house to see how us kids were doing, and my sister and dad would say I was outside playing, and that went on for quite a while before my mom realized I'm not there. And she hired someone who found me in Centralized Mental Institution and got me out. And she didn't have enough money to get me out here, so I went to a group home in Stony Brook, New York, and that was the first time I ever met my people, you know, you guys. And I was in this group home, and there were all these crazy kids in there, and they stole more than me, and they taught me how to steal better, and we'd mug old ladies at night, just old ladies, because we were just like little twiggy kids. We couldn't handle much more than an old lady or two. And we'd grab a purse, and we'd run across the college field and get some acid, and we'd fry all day. And I really believe that was probably the best time of my life, and when the drugs were working and stopped working as well. And after a while, my mom got enough money to get me and my sisters out here to California, and we moved to Newport Beach, California. And while I was in New York, I transitioned into kind of a boy because I thought maybe my dad wanted a boy, so I started, and I was fighting all the time, so it was a natural progression. I would wear work boots and Levi's and flannel shirts, and that was about it, and I was kind of a tomboy, so Newport Beach Harbor High School wasn't really a fit for me. And my sister, my older sister, who I, didn't really get along with, said, why don't we hang out in the smoke pit today? And I said, okay. And we went to the smoke pit, we hung out, and the next day, I guess she went to class. I never went to class. I went to the smoke pit every day, and I hooked up with these girls, and we started doing burglaries throughout the day, just to keep ourselves busy, and we didn't have a drug habit. So we would take money, alcohol, cigarettes, and we had jewelry, and if I didn't have a drug habit, so I didn't know what to do with the jewelry, so if you were my friend, you were probably wearing some old lady's diamond ring or something, and the rest of the jewelry just sat at home in my drawer, and one day I came home from school, and the detectives were in my house. I guess my mom had found a pile of jewelry and taken it to the jewelry store to get appraised, and the police came in on her. So they were asking me about burglaries, and I'm like, I don't even know anything about it, but what burglaries? And then they came down with a note from my room. Dear Kim, you want to do some burglaries today? Love, Laurie, with a little heart. So, yeah. So like right from the start, I'm not doing very well at the crime thing. So I go to juvenile hall, and I become a ward of the court. So the rest of my juvenile years are like in and out of juvenile hall and group homes, and I ran from every group home they ever put me in. I never wanted to be there. It wasn't my home, and the only place I ever stayed in was a place where a bunch of us girls got transitioned to together. But I started going to continuation school because I screwed up regular school. And when I went there, I saw this girl that I kind of like felt like I could hang out with. And she had a lot of older people picking her up from school, and she looked cool, And so I had met this guy that dealt coke down at the beach. Now, I never really bonded to anybody, Some guy I was seeing dealt some coke. I had tried coke. It made me talk a lot, talk. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore, But I thought she might like coke, So I brought her in some coke, and I said, you want to do some coke? And she said, yeah, meet me in the bathroom and bring a cup of water and a cigarette, but don't light your cigarette. And we went into the little bathroom stall, and she pulled the needle out of her purse, and she said, I'm going to shoot up. You want to shoot up? And I thought, well, hell yeah, if it kills me, fine. If it doesn't, I might like it. So we start shooting coke and cannabinol on a regular basis and stealing everything we can get our hands on, and we're like best friends. And the funny thing, again, looking back from sobriety, this is like my best friend. Her whole family is white supremacists. I mean, really serious white supremacists, and I'm a Jew, and we're like best friends, But when you're doing drugs, that stuff all goes kind of by the wayside. You got drugs, it's on. We used to pick up from this lady down at the beach, and she was like an ex-Playboy bunny, and she was like 30, and we were like 16, 17 at the time, so she was still hot at 30, if you can imagine that. I mean, she was an old lady, right, to us. And she would get freaky, man. I'd be in the bathroom with her with the door closed, and she'd go, check the shower. And I go, check the shower? Okay, I'm going to check the shower. Nobody in the shower, and we'd close the shower door, and then a couple minutes later, check the shower. And I'd be like, okay, you know what? If I ever get this crazy, it's time to stop. I know when it's time to stop. You are losing it. But I'm not telling her that. She's got the drugs. I'm checking the shower every couple minutes. I'll keep on checking the shower. But, yeah. So she's got these two little kids, like a 9-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy. And I remember sitting up with her 9-year-old at some nights, where she's trying to get to sleep because her mom's acting all crazy, and just calming her down, saying it's going to be okay, because I was still kind of normal at that age. But the time I was like 17, I was so whacked out. I thought the police were after me all the time. Like I'd be in a place with a knife hiding behind the fridge, and if you came up and said, Laurie, what are you doing behind the fridge? I'd think you were a friggin' narc. You're giving away my spot so the cops can come in and see me behind the fridge. Now I got to find a new spot, and I'm not going near you because you're going to announce it again, and I'm losing it. So I go back to New York because I'm thinking, in New York, my friends just did social acid and mescaline and drank, and I will stop shooting up. And I get to New York, and I start going out with some guy, and I get pregnant. And I realize I'm pregnant, and all of a sudden it hits me that, like, I can have a family. Like, I can have a baby that's mine, like my own family, somebody that's not going to leave me, And I want to have this baby, but I'm scared. Like, he might get married and have some nice wife and come back and try and get the baby. So I left New York and I didn't tell him I was pregnant. And I thought, I'm not going to use drugs anymore. I got a baby, I got a family. And I'm like 6 months pregnant, and my baby's moving in my stomach, and somebody walked in with some drugs, and I can't say no, you know, and I shoot up drugs, and she's not moving anymore, you know, and this always gets to me because my daughter is like my best friend. But you know what? When you use drugs, it blocks all the love out of your life. I lose the decisions. I lose the ability to make a choice about love, about anything, you know? And so I'm thinking I killed my baby, and I'm pushing on my stomach trying to get her to kick back. Please kick back. I don't want to kill my baby. And I'm calling the hospital. I have a friend that's on coke, and she's pregnant, and they're like, bring her in. Well, I can't bring her in, you know? And so she's born, and they don't check, right? And we go home, and I get on welfare. I'm getting $200 every 2 weeks for welfare, and my welfare check is gone in the first night. I don't even have enough money for baby food in the morning. I had these friends that used to come over. They did a lot of time in prison, and when they were in prison, they were at my house, and they did heroin. And I had tried heroin, and it made me throw up and act too nice, and I didn't like it, you know? But at some point, I said, well, maybe I could start doing heroin to stop doing coke. You know, and so that was my detox plan. I have a lot of good detox plans. I started doing heroin, stopped doing coke, and it worked really well for a couple of weeks, you know. And my sisters are both drug addicts. My little sister would do pretty much anything you had, and my older sister based coke and hung out with a lot of rich guys. And my older sister called me one night, and she said, Laurie, I have a job to do tonight, but I can't do it, and you can make a lot of money. You want to go? And I said, yeah. And she told me where to go and meet these guys. And I went there and I met these guys, and they gave me like $800. They were doctors. They gave me a big speech about prostitution and AIDS. And I knew what I was supposed to do. And I frankly didn't care as long as I was going to make money. And driving home with that $800, I thought, this isn't a bad gig here. So I got $800 in my pocket. That's like 2 months worth of welfare checks, you know? The next day I flip open the Yellow Pages and I sign up for a call service, and I start going to guys' hotels and to their houses when their wives aren't there and when they're on vacation, and sleeping with them for money. And like 3 weeks into it, I'm getting sick from the heroin, and they're not calling for some reason in the morning. They're waiting till night. So I see these girls out on the streets, working the streets, and I think, you know what? I could just walk out there in the morning. They're making money. And I walked out to the streets, and I started making money, and that was the beginning of the end for me. You know, although it was years on the streets, and when I was first there, I thought, you know what? I would see someone drive by in a nice car like a Porsche, and I'd say, victim to society. Look at that. Has to go to work, go home, eat, go to work, go home, eat. I'm free. I am totally free. I could stay out here. I could make as much money as I want. You know how free I was? I was spending all of my life in bathrooms, Chevron, Jack in the Box, the dealers in the alley, using rigs from people I don't even know how old they've been. Do they have AIDS? Who knows, you know? My kids locked up in some hotel room with some guy that just got out of prison waiting for me to get back with some more dope, you know? And I'm free, right? I got to study. My mom came at some point, and she took my kid away from me, and it was like, okay, because now more time to work the streets and do drugs, you know? And I knew she wasn't safe, sitting around in that hotel room waiting for me to get back. And it was the beginning of the end for me. I mean, I started to get to a point where I didn't care anymore. I got raped a lot. I got kidnapped a lot. And I just didn't care. You know, I just wanted to die, but I had lost the will to do anything about it. And there was nothing left of me. And a couple days before I got here, 2 guys picked me up, and they jumped on the freeway. And by this point, I know jumping on the freeway is a bad thing. You know, it's bad. And I tried to grab the wheel, and one of them hit me in the head hard, like to where you see stars, you know? And I knew it was going to be bad, and we end up in the woods. Again, I'm in trouble, and they've got a gun to my head, and they're beating me and raping me and sodomizing me and beating me and raping me, and they're fighting, and they keep on putting the gun to my head, but they're not pulling the trigger, and they're fighting, and one of them wants to kill me, and the other one doesn't. And then finally, I have like the reverse of a spiritual awakening. It says, you know what, Laurie? They want to kill you, and you want to die. Why don't you tell them who you are, you know? So I start screaming, kill me now, kill me, because I'm trying to scare them, you know, because they're going to put that gun in my head, they're going to pull the fucking trigger, and it's going to be done, you know, it's going to be over. And I think I scared the hell out of them, because I end up on the side of the road with some guy in a van picking me up, and all I had on was a shirt, and he took me to a hospital, and from the hospital, he must have paid for a cab back to 5th and Harbor, where I work the streets, and I get out of that cab with just the hospital gown on with the slit up the back, and I walk up to the bus stop in 5th and Harbor, and I stick my thumb out because I need to get some money right now, because I need to get some drugs in me, because I need to forget what just happened to me. And that's how it started going after a while, you know? And a couple days later, I woke up and I called my mom, and I said, Mom, can you help me? And she hung up on me, and rightly so, because I've robbed from my mom, I've stole from my mom, you know? And I called some trick that had been trying to help me for a while, and I said, Tom, I need help. And he said, Laurie, I will take you anywhere you want to go, but I am not giving you a dime. And I said, cool. And he took me to this little place, this little detox. And I remember getting on my knees and praying, God, help, and crying. And I was crying because, do you know how many times I've asked God for help? Every time I did too much drugs, every time a trick had a gun to my head or a knife to my throat, I said, help, God, I'm going to be different. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to do things different. And every single time, God came through, and I didn't. So I'm sitting there on my knees going, what makes you think he's listening to you, Laurie? You know? And I'm here to tell you, if you think God has turned his back on you, that's impossible. You know? If you're sitting here and you don't believe in God, God believes in you. And that's a fact. You know, that was January 6, 1987, the last time I ever used a drink. You know, and from that place, I waited at the Trick's house for 3 weeks for a recovery home to open, and I was supposed to stay there a month, but I ended up staying there a year. And during that time, my mom couldn't watch my kid anymore, and I had to put her in a foster home. And that was difficult for me because of where I come from, you know, and all the shit I'd already put her through, but I knew I had to stay clean this time. And they told me in the recovery home, Laurie, you have to get rid of all your secrets. You're only as sick as your secrets. And I knew the biggest secret I had was that day with the gun. So my dad's trip was from New York to California, and I told him, Dad, I'm dying, but I didn't tell him of what, you know. And you need to come see me. And he came out to this recovery home, and he sat down in this little counseling center, and the lady said, you know what? Tell your dad what we talked about, Laurie. And, you know, although I was like 23 when I got clean, I felt like I was like 6, you know, and he's a big guy, and we don't talk. You don't talk about stuff like that, you know? And all of a sudden, I just shut down. I said, no, I'm not talking. And she said, Laurie, your dad has come 3,000 miles to hear what you've got to say. Just start. And she kind of coached me through it, and I started talking like, why did you hate me? Why did you beat me? What did I do wrong? Just tell me what I did wrong. And he lifted his head, and he looked at me, and he said, if only you had fed the dog, it would have been different. And I was like, you know what? That's some crazy shit. Do you know what I mean? That is not, what the fuck is that about? And I got up to leave that place and run out the door, and before I hit the door, it was the first time I ever heard God clearly speak to me in sobriety. He said, you know what, Laurie, it's not about what he said, it's about what you said. Because on that day, I dropped all of that baggage that I've been carrying for them, you know, about hiding that gun, and I need my dad to love me so bad that I'm willing to kill myself over it, you know? And I got out of there, and I moved out into this little 2-bedroom apartment, and I got my daughter back, and I was so scared and that I started a meeting at my house. There used to be a group called Dog on the Roof. They were real serious and military-like in Orange County. So I was anti-Dog on the Roof. I say, you know, just smoke, gossip, drink coffee, whatever. Just stay clean. Just don't use, you know. Don't drink. And so I started an anti-Dog on the Roof meeting at my house. It was called Pussy on the Porch for women. And it was every Tuesday night. And after a while, they took the Pussy on the Porch out of the directory. They didn't like the name, right? So it's the same group of women every week, and we're meeting there and doing our stuff, but we're staying clean, you know? And I got a lot of commitments. I was secretary. I had a jail panel and a juvenile unit because that's what I was used to, you know? And one day on a Tuesday when we had the Pussy on the Porch meeting, this girl shows up and nobody knows her. And at the end of the meeting, she said, my name's Pam and I'm an addict, and I'd love to get what you guys have, but I have a 12-year-old daughter back at the crack house I just left, and I can't leave her there, so I can't get what you guys have. And I remember getting up and going into the back room and praying to God, do you think I could help her? And I felt like, yeah, I could help her. You know, I felt like God was okay with it. And at the end of the meeting, I told her, you know what, drop off your kid here, and I'll watch her for a month, and you go get help, you know? And like 2 months later, I've still got her 12-year-old kid, and she hasn't called in a while. So I called the recovery home, and they're like, she left here 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, crap. Because I got her kid, and they're like, well, we don't do kids, we do recovery. And I'm like, well, they said, call Orange County Social Services. So I call Social Services, they say, drop her off. I'm like, drop her off? No, I'm not dropping any kid off in an institution, not after what I've been through. So I applied to be a foster mom, and they're like, prostitution, receiving stolen goods, assault and battery, not really foster mom material today. Come back in like 7 years. So I applied to be a guardian of her, you know, and Shannon's like my karma. She burglarized my house. That was like the last step. And when she did that, she moved out with a different family at church, and we really bonded, and she started working with me at work. And so we're like, Summer's like 13 years old at this point, and I think, you know what, I want to give my daughter a normal life, and I may never marry anyone because of this inability to bond thing. So I'm going to save to buy a house. And I tell Summer we're going to save a room. That's my daughter's Summer, sorry about that. And we're going to share a room. We're going to save half my paycheck every month for a year, and we're going to buy a house. And we go save like $10,000. I couldn't wait the whole year. And we go and find this beautiful house, and we walk into this new home builder place, and we see my dream house, you know. And I'm so scared because this is not my life, you know. So I walk in every weekend and look at that house, and the ladies in the building are like, Laurie, you here to look at your house? And I'm like, yeah. And I walk through, and I don't sign anything because I'm scared, you know. And one weekend there's like a $10,000 off sale, so I'm like, okay. I sign the paperwork. The lady walks me through my taxes and how I'm going to do this, and I sign the paperwork. And we watch as our home is built, and I'm like, this is just not my life, you know. And we move into this brand new 3-bedroom house. And my older sister never dealt with the stuff from when we were kids, and she calls me one day, and I don't know why she called me because we weren't really friends, but she said, you know what, Laurie, I beat my son, who was 4 at that time, so bad I think I almost killed him, and I need to bring him over to your house, and we need to call social services, and we need to have him taken away from me. So she comes over with him, and the social worker comes over, and she says, you know, I beat my kid because I don't like boys, and I don't like boys because of what my dad did to me. And then she starts talking about it, and I'm like, you know, you'd think that would be good, but you know what? It was a breakdown for me because although I know I'm not crazy, there's still a part of me that thinks I'm kind of crazy because they said I was crazy, you know, but you mean this stuff really happened? I'm not crazy, you know. And I thought, you know what? This is not going to happen again in my lifetime, that a little kid's going to get taken away after being beaten. Now he's going to be put away? No. So I applied to be a foster mom, and they say, Laurie, you know what? It's been 7 years. You came back. And I'm like, wow. And my little sister is here today, always says, is it odd or is it God? And that was definitely a God moment. I was not counting the time. So they make me a foster mom, and my older sister finds out, and she takes her kid back because she doesn't want me to look like the good mom in the family. She wanted him to go away. But by the grace of God, she's got 17 years clean today, and she hasn't beat him since. So, yeah, it's a couple of days before Christmas, 2 days before Christmas, and I get a call, and this lady calls me up, and she says, is this Laurie? And I said, yeah, this is Laurie. And she said, I have you on the list as foster moms, and there's a 15-year-old girl here who ran away from Vegas and doesn't have a mom, and her dad's on drugs, and we're not giving her back to him. So can you come pick her up? And I'm like, what? You have me on a list? Like to pick up any kid? I'll be right there, you know, like before they figure out who the heck I am, you know, I'm coming to get her. And I walk in there, and I remember when Catherine walked out and how beautiful she was, and I just thought, you know what? This is not my life. This doesn't make sense that an ex-prostitute heroin addict can go pick up a kid that's been taken away from somebody else. But you know what? God doesn't make sense. God makes miracles, period. So if you're sitting here today and you're thinking this can't happen or that can happen, if you're sitting here, it can happen, you know? And so Kat moves back home with me in summer, and they're both 15 at the time, and we're living in this 3-bedroom house. God only knows why we had 3 bedrooms, right? And the phone rings one day, and it's some guy, and he says, word on the streets is Pam is dead. And I'm like, Pam is Shannon's mom, the girl who dropped her off at the meeting, and we're waiting for her to come back. And Shannon and I are working at the same company, and I'm like, what do you mean word on the streets? And I have to call Shannon and tell her mom was dead, and I could never understand at that time what God was thinking, like, because I think there's an aha moment for everything that happens in your life. There's another moment why you understand why God did that, you know. And I thought there is never going to be an aha moment for this, you know. We're waiting. I love Pam. She's one of us, you know. And I've had my aha moment. One day I walk out of my house, there's for sale signs all over the neighborhood. I don't know why. You know, I didn't even graduate high school. I know nothing. I asked my neighbor, he's like, Laurie, our homes have appreciated to a point where you sell your house and you buy a new house, and you keep on getting bigger houses. And I remember putting that stake in the ground saying, God, you know what? This is my dream house. I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to put this in here, and if it's supposed to sell, it'll sell within 30 days. If not, I'm keeping my house. And 3 weeks later, our house sells for more than any other house in the neighborhood. And for no reason. I haven't done anything to our house, you know? And I'm riding through the canyon on my motorcycle one day, and I see these really big houses, and I think, you know what? I'm going to go in there and look at how they're painting and look at the curtains and see how they're decorating these days, because, you know, I'm going to be getting a house soon. You know, I have to pick a house. And I walk into the new homes builder, and the girl that was in the other place now quit her job there and transferred to this place, and she said, hey, Laurie, I'm going to sell your second house. And I'm like, not in this neighborhood, you're not. I'm just coming to look at the paint. And she said, no, Laurie, sit down. Let's see your tax returns. Bring them over. Let's go through them. And she does it again, and I buy this huge 4-bedroom house with a loft. And I'm like, why am I in this big house? But today I know why I'm in that big house, you know? I realized today I've had my aha moment for my whole life. Shannon, God keeps on sending me kids. You know, that's the bottom line. Shannon, the 12-year-old that came to live with me, is 29 years old and has 2 little kids that call me Granny. Oh, and I'm so grateful for that. People say, doesn't that bug you? No, it doesn't bug me. She calls me mom. They call me granny. You know, I am blessed. I am truly blessed. Catherine, who moved in with me when she was 15, a couple days before Christmas, just got married to her best friend. And her dad, a day after meeting me, went to his first AA meeting and walked us down the aisle together, you know. And that stuff just doesn't happen, you know. And Sarah, who lived with me since she was 16, is 21. And Nikki, who lived with me since she was 16, is 19. And Yvonne, who lived with me since she was 16, is 19 and just gave birth to a beautiful baby boy yesterday. And Kaylee, who lives with me now, is 18, and she's just a little ray of sunlight. And Chelsea, who lives with me now, is 16. And you know what? Michael, who moved in with me when he was 12, is now 15. And you know what? I've had 17 kids, and it doesn't get any better. Every time they call me and say, you get to go pick up a kid, it's like Christmas for me. You know, I am like, these are my people, you know. I realize now, and I was telling my friend Caprice on the way up here today, if I was to go home to an empty house, I would be traumatized. When I walked into that group home when I was like 13 years old, I found my people for the first time, and every time I go home, my family is there when those kids are there, you know. And I am so grateful for that. I woke up one night to some noise outside of my room, and I go out there, and one of my kids is banging her head on the wall in the dark, screaming, why did my mom let this happen to me? And I remember us all going in there and putting our hands on her and talking about love and God in this program in such a way that we transmitted so much light on that darkness that it couldn't exist anymore. You know, and it's in times like that when I am so grateful for all the pain I went through in my entire life, because when you've got that and you can put your hands on someone and you can help them to heal so quickly, that pain is gold, people. I am so truly grateful for everything I went through in my life. I wouldn't give up a minute of it. Not my dad's beatings, not the streets, nothing, you know? So grateful. And, yeah. So recently, I keep on waking up in the middle of the night, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, like I need to do more. People tell me all the time, you do so much, Laurie. And it's like, I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I wanted to build this kids' home. But I didn't know what kind of kids' home, and I thought maybe like Boys Town, because that's a nice place. There's a lot of bad places, and but I don't know how to build a Boys Town. And then I get this call from this foster mom that I've never really talked to, and she says, I have 2 tickets on how to build a Boys Town, and I can't go. Do you want to go? And I'm like, wow, that's strange. Okay, I'll go. And then I go to this thing, and I'm like, okay, now I know how to build a Boys Town, God, but I have no idea who to call or what to do or how to start this thing. And I get this call from Supervisor Riley's office, and they say, you've been recommended to be on the advisory board for foster care in Orange County, and we're wondering if you'd like to sit on the board. And I'm like, well, who recommended me? And they say, well, we don't have anything on who recommended you. It's just somebody recommended you. Do you want to? Yeah, okay, so I'm on the board, you know. And I remember, you know, just a bunch of God incidences over and over and over again. And I remember going to bed one night praying hard, you know what, God, I don't know what kind of home I'm supposed to do, and I'm getting frustrated, you know. I know I'm supposed to do something, but I don't know what it is. And I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning with a light bulb that should have been there all along. Well, you should try and help the kind of kids you're helping now, because it's what you do good. So someone mentioned transitional housing, and I thought, that sounds boring. But I go and look at it, and it's like all these 18-year-olds that get out of foster care and group homes are being dropped out on the streets, like emancipated, and they've got no parents, no money, no car. And I'm like in shock. Like, how come I didn't notice this before? Well, my kids are my kids for life. I don't realize what happens out there. So I start talking about it all over the place, and then these people start coming from everywhere, and kids, you know, like, we want to help. And right now we're in the process of building homes everywhere for these kids, 18 to 24, that have no parents, so that we can take them in, take them home, take them off the streets, you know. And I'm so grateful for my life, and I really feel like, you know, I'm in line with God, and so grateful for every moment of my life. Now, I realized as a kid how I thought God was punishing me because I was a witch maybe in a past life. I realize now that God loves me so much that he prepared me for what I would be as an adult. If you've ever seen like Karate Kid, wax on, wax off, why am I doing this, Mr. Miyagi? I'm supposed to be learning karate. My whole freaking childhood was wax on, wax off. To go be there for the kids that need me, you know? I remember I was cruising through the Bible one day, and I know I'm Jewish, but I was just looking through to see what you guys have, you know? And I saw this thing that said something like, and I'm just paraphrasing because I don't know the exact verbiage, God can turn all bad to good. And I remember thinking about my childhood and thinking, no, not all bad. But I'm here to tell you, God can turn all bad to good, you know? And if you're in pain, if you're going through something, share it with someone who's going through the same pain, because it will turn that pain to gold, you know? And I want to share one more thing, and then I'm going to shut up. I was sitting in Orange at a restaurant one day, kind of an outside restaurant, and I had a little girl that I'm foster momming and another little girl that I'm the mentor of, and they're faced towards me, and in the back alley I see this homeless guy walking towards me, you know, and he's got like heart, it looks like he's been in his pants for a while, he's got the Jesus beard thing going on, he's dirty, he's coming towards us. I'm like, okay. And he comes up to our table and he's like, you know, I'm hungry, can you help me, can you get me something to eat? And I said, yeah, sure, you know, we're gonna be here for a while. Look at the menu, you know, we'll get you anything you want. And he got pissed after a few minutes and he goes, I don't know what I want. How am I supposed to know what I want? He started cussing at me and I'm like, look, dude, we're gonna be here, you know? You can take your time, you know, 15, 20 minutes, we're gonna be here. Just decide what you want. And he got all pissed off and he walked away. And I remember turned back to look at those kids and one of them was crying. And I remembered immediately her dad was a homeless guy. And she said to me, you know what, why do you do that? Why does everybody have to be an alcoholic to you? Why can't he just be a homeless guy that needs some money? Why couldn't you give him some money? And I started thinking maybe she's right, you know? And we continued to eat, and a couple minutes later he comes back around the corner and he said, you know what, I'm sorry, I have to apologize to you, I have to make amends. I shouldn't have spoke to you like that in front of your kids. You were just trying to help me. And here I go off on you cussing in front of your kids, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't give you any money because I'm an alcoholic, and I feel weird about it. And right when I said alcoholic, he kind of went pale, and he sat down across from me. He said, you're an alcoholic? And I said, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. And he said, my name's John, I'm an alcoholic. And do you know Clancy? And I'm like, yeah, I know Clancy. And he said, Clancy was my sponsor, and he'd be really mad if he saw where I was at right now, you know? And I told him, you know what, John, he wouldn't be mad. He's saving his seat for you, you know, and we hugged and he walked away. And that visit from that guy was a visit from God for all of us, for me, for that kid, for John, you know. And, you know, when I saw that guy coming, I would have never thought he ever hit a meeting in his life. He would have been one of those poor suckers to me that never found Alcoholics Anonymous. But I'm here to tell you, it takes 1 second to trade in your life. Pick up a drink, pick up some drugs. Are you ever coming back? Anyway, I'm grateful to be here. Thanks for letting me share.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.